I believe the situation that we face, Mr. President, is as dangerous as any of the sort of real crises that we talk about today. We had a hearing in the Foreign Relations Committee on the subject of Syria. And we all know what's happening with respect to Iran and nuclear weapons and the possibility even of a war.
So what's Democrat Senator John Kerry talking about? Climate change. Marc Morano steaming over this one. Marc, climate change is as dangerous as Ahmadinejad in Iran developing nuclear weapons and Syria unrest? What's he talking about?
Well, I mean, John Kerry has previously said that Soviet warheads in the 1980s posed less of a threat than man-made global warming or an equal threat. He actually believes that global warming poses, in his words, a clear and present danger, unquote, to the United States of America and to the world. And not only is the reason he's saying this is he's desperate. The whole movement has collapsed. It was shown to be subprime science, subprime economics, and subprime politics. The UN has given up on global treaties, maybe till 2020. Cap and trade, climate bill is dead in the United States Congress. Obama doesn't even talk about it. The only place it's going to be snuck under is in the EPA. So Senator Kerry is a desperate man. He wrote a book on this. His foundation with his wife, Teresa Heinz Kerry, has given money to global warming scientists. He's been a very hardcore activist, and yet nothing's come of it. And the public continues to believe less and less, as they should, as the science crumbles around Senator Kerry.
Sure. Talk to us about the science a little bit. What did we find out in the last year and a half since, there was some pretty damning information that got released, some emails that were going back and forth between different research groups and whatnot. What did we find out?
Yeah, what we found out, and that's the ClimateGate scandal you're referring to. John Kerry would say it's all a bunch of blown up over nothing, but the bottom line is it exposed the upper echelon of the United Nations Climate Panel as conspiring to craft a narrative on man-made global warming. They were threatening journal editors. They were threatening scientists who didn't toe the line. They were excluding studies that weren't convenient. We ended up finding out that they were linking to websites of groups like Greenpeace and environmental pressure groups and citing their data as somehow, as John Kerry would call the UN Climate Panel, the gold standard of science. Well, ClimateGate showed it to be fool's gold. And anyone who follows it now, as you'll notice, even John Kerry, Senator Barbara Boxer, the other Democrats, don't even cite the UN Climate Panel anymore because it's been so completely discredited. Now, in terms of the science, we have a report at my website, Climate Depot, from A to Z. They're failing on their predictions. Sea level, not only is it failing to accelerate, it's actually dropped a year or two ago, and it's showing no signs of acceleration. Global temperatures have flattened out 10, 15, 20 years, depending on the data source. You go through polar bears are at or near historic highs, cholera, malaria, Mount Kilimanjaro, all the stuff Al Gore warned about isn't coming true. Even if you look at drought, the droughts of the 1930s and 50s were mega droughts compared to what we're having today. You can't make these comparisons. So what they've reduced to is tying every weather event to global warming, and that no longer can be considered science.
You know, I keep pointing to this, and I believe it's April of 1975, if I'm not mistaken. Newsweek had the cover. They had a big piece inside talking about the coming ice age, because the globe was cooling so quickly. They were warning people about the global cooling effect.
Yeah, and if you go back, that was the CIA, the National Academy of Science were involved in that. They used the same rhetoric then. They talked about a tipping point. We must act now. They were pointing to extreme weather as evidence of man-made global cooling back then. And the most insulting thing that Senator John Kerry will have you believe is that somehow acts of the United States Congress can control the weather. He actually, and Senator Boxer has said this as well, they believe if we pass a climate bill, we can reduce droughts, hurricanes, tornadoes. This is now akin to medieval witchcraft, where we used to blame witches for controlling the weather. One scientist likened the climate science today as akin to the predictions of Nostradamus in the Mayan calendar. No matter what happens, it confirms their theory. And that's what they do. Record cold and blizzards is now more proof of their theory if you listen to the global warmists.
That's Marc Morano. He's with ClimateDepot.com. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Eric.
All right.